Hello and happy Tuesday. Welcome back to my nonsense. Now, today I'm actually going to try for a cogent, sort of linear argument. We're going to try, but you're not new here. You know that as opposed to, what I try for a well-researched and thought out thing on the podcast, here you get my stupid and rambling. But we're going to try for something a little better today. Shake things up a little bit. I can't guarantee it'll be every Tuesday, but this Tuesday, why not? So, I mentioned in one of the podcast episodes that a really good writer, a really good storyteller, is a master manipulator. And I think it was on my episode on the Iliad when I talked about how Homer sort of sidestepped the opportunity to really make everything pro-Greece. He made sure to cover both sides to make it look like war is hard on everybody. War was hard on the Greeks, but it was also hard on the Trojans, and they suffered losses and they were left scarred and traumatized by the Trojan War, which I found really incredible. But it's something that happens to us all the time. You watch a movie, you watch a show, you read a book, and you find yourself following the lead, following the path the writer has clearly cut out for you. And it is a little bit of a manipulation to get you to see different points of view, to think in different ways, which is why reading and storytelling and that kind of stuff is good anyway, which is why representation with storytelling is so good, because you get different points of view. You're forced into that seat. Overall, it is a good thing, but sometimes I think it can be a little nefarious. One of the places where you see the most blatant manipulation is in like war movies or patriotic movies, where it's very black and white, good and bad. There are no two sides. It is, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, now let's blow each other up, and we're gonna win, of course. Things like that. But I also think well-written comedy is a place where it's also really prevalent. I came to this because the way my anxiety plays out is I need predictability. So I keep returning to movies and shows that I've watched before. That's kind of how I like to end my day, is with the predictable, something I know what's going to happen. And I've been rewatching The Office. I hadn't watched it during its original run on TV. I actually only watched it back when Netflix still had it, maybe 2 years ago. I finally got around to watching it because someone at a convention kind of came down on me when I admitted I'd never seen it and was like, seriously, you're missing out. And I don't necessarily usually have FOMO, but I have a problem with hype. If a series is really big in the moment, I'm not always on the bandwagon with everybody. I like to wait, because I find that hype is not an indicator of quality. Not to say that hype is a bad thing. It's just something that I like to wait it out and try it out after the hype has died down and the crowd has moved on to something else. If one of my books got a lot of hype behind it, oh, praise Jesus, like happiest girl alive if that happened to me. But as a consumer, I like to kind of wait. Sometimes it's worth the hype. Sometimes it's like, it got a little caught up. So when someone said, it's off the air now, you should really give it a try. All right. I binged it on Netflix and immediately bought it on DVD, the whole series, to add it to the other DVDs that I watch over and over and over again that makes me feel better about life. So I'm watching it, like I said, 2 years ago, so I think this is the third time I'm going back through it. And I'm very well aware of some slight manipulations going on for several reasons. Now, The Office is a show that has been heavily lauded for its writing, that some of the best writers working in television worked on this show, and also that a lot of the writers acted in the show. It's a kind of a big deal. They kind of did their own thing. I mean, if you were a fan of the show, and you don't, you really should be listening to the Office Ladies podcast that Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey do. They played Pam Beasley and Angela Martin, I think, in the show, and they give a lot of behind the scenes stuff. It it's an okay podcast. I quite enjoy it. But I'm watching it again, and I've become very aware that I'm being forced to relate to and like bad people. And because it's done with so much tongue in cheek, because it's done so, it's adorable, it's charming. That's why you fall for it. But usually I'm not the first person to anything. I'm the last horse to cross the line. And I really doubt I'm the first person to get to this now. But I still see so much blindness with some of these characters where it's like, I get it. You're watching the show to disconnect. It's just fun. You don't want to think too hard. But I think it's something we kind of need to talk about. So I'm sorry I keep looking over here. This is where my sticky note is. I couldn't get it to stick to the stand like I usually do. So, The Office, and we love bad characters. If you haven't watched, before I get started, if you have never watched The Office, you don't have to watch this. I'm going to try to give examples of everything, so in case you only watched it once or you haven't seen it at all, you'll still kind of get it. But, if you haven't watched The Office, it of course comes with my recommendations, but I also understand why you would avoid it. Here we go. The first person, and it's an obvious person who's a bad guy, is Michael Scott. The first season, they push his badness and ineptness a little more. In concurrent seasons, as it goes on, they make him much more lovable, much more relatable, much more a victim of certain circumstances so that you feel bad for him. But Michael Scott is a bad guy. This is a person, if you worked for him, if you knew him in real life, you would not be seeing those little aspects of him that make you feel bad for him, that need to be liked, that need to be acknowledged and have people around him who are like a family. You would see this guy is a huge sexist, this guy is a racist, this guy doesn't know how to run an office, fuck him. We're all going to be Stanley, essentially, in real life. Stanley is one of the salesmen, and he's pretty much the only person who never really softens on Michael. And if you really think about it, yeah, I would be Stanley towards Michael. Stanley is not a good guy either, but he didn't make my list of the super bad guys. In real life, he wouldn't be the adorable Steve Carell character. He wouldn't be... you can still feel sorry for a guy for having a really bad relationship, like Michael's relationship with Jan. You can still feel sorry for him and still think he's a massive asshole. And he is. He is, you guys. And I can watch the show and still, oh, Michael, but I can still fully realize I'm being manipulated to overlook a lot of bad stuff about this guy in order to like him. This is the talent of the writers, 100%. So bad guy number 2 is Roy. So in later seasons, one episode actually, they give Roy a redemption story where he's started his own company and he's getting married. And so Roy is, when the series first starts, he is the fiancé of Pam Beasley, one of our main characters. She's the receptionist, the cute, perky, bubbly girl. He works down in the warehouse. He's a very blue-collar guy. It's very familiar to me. I grew up around guys like this. I'm related to a lot of guys like this. They work hard. When the day's over, they want to go home, plop in front of the TV with a beer and space. Totally understandable. But here's the thing. The relationship between Roy and Pam is an abusive one. This is something that, as someone, look, I know what it looks like, okay? Without getting too into it, I know what an abusive relationship looks like. I know what it looks like without having to see him actually grab her and push her. But there are levels of control that Roy holds over Pam. And the fact that he has violent outbursts when, so when Pam is told that Dunder Mifflin will help her do like a graphic design class, she can do it on weekends, and Roy completely shoots it down, completely, no, you're not doing this. And Pam is having that talking head, and she's trying to make it sound like she's okay with it too, but then she starts crying. That's abuse. She was not on board with this. She is being forced to do this. That alone is an abuse. That could just be him not in the mood for it. Relationship dynamics are complicated all the time, all around. But that is an indicator of something that's going wrong. The other thing that really points to abuse, especially physical abuse, is when they get back together after she calls off the wedding and he's, working really hard to try to win her back. She's not biting for a while, but she's having a really bad day and he's kind of there to pick her up. And she's like, okay, let's try this again. And she's all very much, I am going to be my own person in this relationship, and I'm going to speak my mind, and I want this to work. So, I'm going to be more forward in, you have to do stuff with me. I want to tell you the truth about some things. And she admits to him that the reason she called off the wedding was because of Jim. She admits to him that they kissed, and they're in a bar, and he breaks a mirror. He starts throwing glasses, and if you watch really carefully, she's sitting on a stool next to him. The second his arm goes up, she pushes away from that stool really quick and gets away from him. And she doesn't look at him anymore. She kind of goes dead face, and she just goes, this is over, and leaves. You guys, he's done this to her before. I'm not insinuating, this is something like they like to put in movies, or those battered woman Lifetime movies where it's always the worst kind of, like, grabbing her by the throat and smacking her face. But it's the kind of thing where, he definitely grabbed her by the upper arms and shook her, grabbed her wrist and screamed in her face. There's a history of something there that made her react and then go stone-faced. Roy is a bad guy, and I'm not happy that they gave him a redemption. David Denman, the actor, is awesome. I love him and everything, but Roy triggers the fuck out of me, okay? So let's move on to another dude, Toby. Now, I think you tend to overlook Toby a lot because the guy that plays him he plays it really derfy. He doesn't really open his mouth a lot when he talks, and he mumbles a lot, and there's a lot of just kind of this, and he's always just got this look on his face. So you tend to not pay a whole lot of attention to Toby, and if you do, you're feeling bad for him because Michael is being horrible to him. And to be honest, Toby isn't someone who's really bad until he becomes obsessed with Pam. Pam, breaks off her engagement and is single, and Toby sort of low-key becomes obsessed with her. And he keeps doing these really awkward attempts to get her attention. And I'm not sure if Pam sees it or she's politely brushing it off. It could be either or, because Pam is one of my favorite characters, but she can be a little dense. So I don't know if she really sees it, but what happens as a consequence of that is he starts doing things professionally that show a bias, that show severe unprofessionalism. Like when she and Jim finally get together, they're in the break room and Pam kisses him on the cheek. They thought nobody was around. This wasn't anything. They were at the soda machines getting soda together, and she kisses him on the cheek and leaves the room. There's nothing creepy about it. Again, there was nobody else in there, so what happens is Toby sees it and he releases this office memo on PDA, and it's real shitty, and they're able to laugh it off, but then, later on, he starts doing shit to kind of mess with Jim. Like when Ryan, he's on his nose candy kick and he's out to get Jim, Toby supports it for no other reason than that he doesn't like Jim because he's with Pam. And then Toby feels her up. Now, when I say feel up, I don't mean like this. He puts his leg on her hand, but they zoom in on it, and it's around her knee area. It's not high up on the thigh, but he does this thing with his finger where he's really stroking her skin. And it only happens for a second, and he does jump a fence and run away and move to Costa Rica for a short amount of time after this. But this isn't like a one-time thing. The guy's a fucking creep. Toby is a creep. Ew. Next guy. Who's next? Now this is a guy I really can't imagine anybody likes, but he's also not someone who's harmless. This is the most annoying character in the show, Andy Bernard, played by Ed Helms. First of all, I don't like to do this. I don't really like to do this. But have you noticed that guy looks like he's got like 52 teeth? Because he's always done that. There's so many teeth in that guy's mouth. But Andy Bernard, by far the most annoying character in the show. But he is also a toxic, self-centered ass bag. Particularly when it comes to Aaron. Now, it's funny when he's with Angela because Angela is so horrible to him. And you want to feel sorry for Andy, but Andy doesn't seem to really have a problem with it. Like, Andy's just like, oh yeah, she's hot and she's with me. Who cares how she treats me? And it's like, Andy, get a little self-esteem. But he's horrible to Aaron. He pines for her. He obsesses over her. He breaks up with her. But then he finally gets her, and they're back together. He goes all the way to Florida in this grand romantic gesture, and he gets her back, and then what's he do? He fucking abandons her to do this weird-ass, like, Vision Quest sailboat thing. He's the new district manager of the office. He has this important job. He abandons Erin because as soon as he's got her, so, you know, she's not interesting anymore. He abandons this job that he was vying for this whole time. He's a sleaze. He's a butt kiss. He is a bad person. And just because he's kind of derpy, just because he also has things in his life that might make you feel sorry for him, like his parents are shitty people to him, he's still an awful person. And oh my God, shut up about Cornell. Bad guy. The next bad guy. Now, I'm going to bring up Dwight real quick because when I talked about this last video, I brought up Team Dwight. I live in eastern Pennsylvania, and actually there are a lot of Amish around here. When I go to the grocery store, I see a lot of Mennonite people who, by the way, they buy so much soda. They got a sweet tooth on them. But, I mean, it's around here. But I thought the Amish had been over here for a long time. This was pre-World War II. I don't know, but Dwight is he has Amish roots in his family. He is not Amish, but like his cousin Mose has he looks very Amish, and there's a talking head. There are a couple talking heads that they sort of hint at Nazi backgrounds in his family, like a grandfather who lives in Argentina and he wanted to go visit him, but the Shoah Foundation stopped it. So that's, of course, like, that's a big bad. That's an unforgivable big bad. I don't want that. Like, of course, I don't want to like anybody who's like, and Dwight himself never seems to, like, Dwight, he's a little bit sexist, but he's also gruff with everybody. He just has this way about him. And I have to admit, I like people like that. I always end up making friends with people who don't like anybody else. I don't know why I find it charming, but I do. And I find it charming in Dwight. And Dwight is, he's mean to everybody, but at the same time, he's everybody's best friend. The way he is with Pam, I can't help it. I love him. While also admitting I might need to jettison Dwight off the planet because maybe there's something bad there. I don't know. But he's not on my list because I do love him. My last bad guy is Jim Halpert. I do not fall under the spell of Mr. Messy Hair look to camera. I just don't. I think he's self-centered. I think the way he treats his girlfriends is fucked. And the way he has to be the smartest guy in the room. You know, he's got to be the cutest, wittiest guy. And when stuff gets pulled on him, he really doesn't enjoy it. And that's a personality most people can admit they don't like to be around. Am I wrong? So the series begins. He is madly in love with Pam, who is engaged to someone else. Now, Pam loves him too. We come to realize that they're having an emotional affair, but he's pining after her, and he keeps going through these little moments of realizing she's with someone else. I need to move on. I've got to stop being this sad little puppy dog. So he gets with, I can't remember her character's name, but it's Amy Adams. He gets with her, and he's horrible to her. Like, one minute he's completely charming and has her giggling, and then he he takes her on this booze cruise that's paid for by the company. So she's there with him at a company function where she knows nobody but him, and she's being the adorable bubbly plus one, and he dumps her on it. Like, he's pining after Pam. He's having a moment, and he's been ignoring her, and she comes up and she's like, what's wrong with you? You've been ignoring me this whole time. Which, fair. And he goes, I don't know, we should break up. And she reacts badly, of course, but what a dick. So he makes his move on Pam. Pam turns him down. He goes to, oh God, the regular office at Scranton. Where's the other one? I don't remember. But he goes to another branch of the parent company, and he meets Karen Filippelli. And there's this really cute thing where, it shows this blossoming affection that they have for each other. And, she really starts liking him. He's cute and flirty with her. And by the time that their branch closes down and they all have to end up back at Scranton anyway, she's got a thing for him. And they end up getting together because she doesn't know anybody there. And Jim is kind of the only person she knows. So she kind of clings to him a little bit. And something, it happens. They end up together. But he is still, in this really shitty, resentful way, he's still holding a candle for Pam. And he's shitty to Pam about it, but he's also really wishy-washy with Karen about it. And it sucks. And he puts Karen through the emotional ringer over this because Karen, she didn't know that he had a thing for Pam before they come back to Scranton. And she comes to find out, and, she has to come to terms with it. Understandable. But then she has to see, them interact with each other and see that there's still a thing there. And eventually, it seems like he sees that, okay, I have to start pulling away from Pam. And it hurts Pam, but it's better for, it's better for Karen. And then, and then Pam, makes her feelings known in this very grand public way. And, she gives him an out. It's very, here are my feelings. I get it. I understand you're with Karen. Cool. But, this is how I feel. And Jim at first seems to be like, I'm with Karen. Thank you for saying that. But he goes to New York with Karen. They're in New York City, which from Scranton is only like a 2-hour drive away. If you look at a map, Scranton is just right over the border between Pennsylvania and New York. And so it's not a huge drive, but it's still, so they go up to New York to interview for this senior position at the parent company, Dunder Mifflin. And she does her interview, and then she comes back out, and he's like, you don't have to wait. I'm going to go do my interview. Who knows how long this is going to take? And she's like, okay, cool. I'm actually going to go have some lunch with friends, but call me when it's done. And he's sure. He's in his meeting, and he sees that Pam had slipped something from the past, an inside joke between them in the folder, because she's the receptionist, but she's also kind of like the secretary when you need copies made, when you need the, copy and collate this for me. She's your girl. She does that for you. And she had done that for him. And she just slipped something in there that says, don't forget us when you're famous. And he, we're supposed to be all like, oh, that's so romantic. He realizes he can't live without her. You guys, he leaves Karen in New York. He runs out of the building. He pulls his name from consideration for this job, runs out of the building, jumps in his car, and rushes back to Scranton to ask Pam out while Karen is still in New York. He just left her there. Now, that sucks. That Holy sucks. But then we're supposed to, we get the lovey-dovey with Pam and Jim, and oh, they get together, and oh, it's the dream relationship, and oh, they get married. He's shitty to Pam after they get married and have kids, and he becomes all wrapped up in this need to have this career that includes him leaving his wife with 2 babies alone. And there's this one episode that shows her, she's got a baby strapped to her chest, and she's dragging this garbage can out to the curb, and he's in his little bachelor apartment playing video games. And then everybody in the show, he eventually, they come to a point where she's like, you have to choose the career or me, the career and the family. And of course, it's a hard decision, and of course, he's not happy about it at first because this was his dream. But he chooses Pam and the family, and he's happier for it. But when the documentary that they're filming for The Office, this is all based on, there's a documentary crew filming this very average corporate America office. And when the documentary airs, the office people, they do like a Q&A at an auditorium of some sort. It looks like it's in a college, but people want to really stick it to Pam and make her understand that him leaving his dream job for her makes her kind of a bad guy, which, oh my God, again, relationships are hard. Middle grounds are hard, not only to lay out, but they're hard to find and they're hard to meet. I've been with my husband 2021. I mean, this is 20 years I've been with this guy, and we've done this. Like, I've got experience. I've got a little level of maturity about this. And I think Jim was in the wrong. Jim wanted the family. He wanted all of this. But then once he had it, all of a sudden, he wanted something that was way off track of this path. That left his partner alone. That can't be overlooked. Jim Halpert sucks. End of story. Now, before I go, I can see we're coming up on a half hour here. The best guy in the show, the absolute best guy in the show, is David Wallace. David Wallace is a high-level executive. He is the CFO of Dunder Mifflin, and later on plays bigger roles. He later becomes the owner of Dunder Mifflin. He's Mr. Executive. But this man is not a suit. This man is not a soulless capitalist like we're usually told executives are. David Wallace is such a nice, patient man. If you've never seen the show, I want to tell you this real quick. So one of the executives, who also happens to be dating Michael Scott, her name is Jan. She gets fired because she's a messy person. Like, whoa. She was lapsing in her duties. She was not doing her job, and they fired her. And she sues for wrongful termination and discrimination because she had gotten breast augmentation, and she says that they're firing her because of that. It's not the reason, but there are depositions being done with this lawsuit, and Michael is kind of in the middle of it because he's Jan's partner. He has to speak for her, but also he is an employee of Dunder Mifflin, so he's kind of in the middle of it, and he goes in wanting to be, Team Jan. He goes in wanting to help her, but Jan, again, like, there really should have been horns sprouting out of her head. It's a great character. It's great writing. Like, as you can see, I'm into this. I love it. But she does some dirty shit, and it's all put on Michael, what she does, and it hurts him. And then they start talking about, they have to, when you have witnesses, when you have other people, you have to discredit them. So one of Michael's things is they were going to give him Jan's job, which isn't true. They asked him to interview for her job. And in the deposition, they interviewed David Wallace concerning whether or not Michael was seriously considered for this job. And they read aloud to Michael what David said. And they're asking him, do you think was he seriously considered for the job? And David, he tries to get out of really answering the question. He's like, he is a dedicated member of our team. He has always been a loyal part of Dunder Mifflin. And you know how lawyers are. No. Was he seriously considered? He is a great district manager. He really motivates his team. No. Was he seriously considered for the job? And David Wallace eventually says, what do you want me to say? He's a nice guy, but no. And they're at a big board table doing this, the lawyers and the mediator, and Jan's on one side, Michael's on the other side, and David is sitting against a wall. He's not at the table, but I mean, he's just so uncomfortable. He's like doing this, and it's horrible to watch. And you can tell he feels so bad that they're reading this out loud to Michael, because Michael's very hurt by this. And Michael ends up coming down and being like, Jan's in the wrong here. I'm on Team Dunder Mifflin. And David Wallace comes to him afterwards and is just like, sorry, I'm so sorry, but thank you. And again, if this were real world, I don't know that Michael would be able to keep his job. I don't know that all of the problems that he ends up causing the company with his, oh my God, homophobia, the sexism, everything, it always goes back up to corporate, and they have to scramble to cover up this stuff to keep from getting sued. And I don't know that in real life he would have kept his job, but I don't know, corporate America is a mess, you guys. But David Wallace is infinitely patient with him, infinitely kind to him. He is personable and nice to everybody. And he, even at the very end of the show, after everybody has completely changed, they are not the same characters from the beginning of the show to the end of the show. Not at all. Which is great. Again, great writing. But David Wallace, consistently, even after he gets fucked in certain ways with this, he is still such a nice, good man. So good. Now, I could do 10 of these talking about the characters and all that, but this was about being manipulated to like bad guys. And really, everybody should be talking about how great David Wallace is, because David Wallace is the best. And so I'm over the mark. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. I am still trying to finish War and Peace. This book is huge. I'm almost done. I will be done by tomorrow. I'll be able to write an episode on it. But holy cow. I knew it was big, but I read big books. I'm not new to this, but I really did not. I underestimated it. I underestimated Tolstoy. Excuse me. I need to be forgiven for this. So there will be an episode tomorrow. I will get back to doing bonus episodes soon, because I feel like this is all I do. I've made it a schedule. I need to make it a schedule to do bonus episodes. I will get back into that. Please forgive me. And thank you for being here with me every week. And I will see you next Tuesday. So bye. Oh, come on, Ramon.